You need an introduction. Beverly, are you able to do an introduction? You planned this.
This afternoon, we are having a special presentation by our long member, Aaron Larget-Caplan, who I have known for, I don't want to say how long, since he was a student at New England Conservatory. Right, Carolyn? We've been there a few times, and we are excited to hear about how he has developed his incredible journey around the world in music. Go for it, Aaron.
Thank you, Beverly. We met in 1997, so that is almost 30 years ago, 28 years ago. Let's see. What should we start with? So all of you will have to pipe in with questions, especially Zena, Terry, Jenny, because or else I'll just talk, and that's not exciting. So my name's Aaron Larget-Caplan. I am a longtime member of Boston's Alumni chapter. I am a beta. I got into Mu Phi Epsilon in 1998. I was officially brought in, and beta is the second Mu Phi Epsilon chapter and the oldest in the country, and I would say the best, but it needs some work at the moment. But that's what the beta stands for, best. And then I graduated New England Conservatory, and I'm originally from Colorado, grew up in Colorado, non-musical family in the sense that there are no professional musicians in my family. My dad played clarinet, and I played clarinet as a child, wanted to play saxophone, but he wanted me to play clarinet, so they told me they were out of saxophones, so I played clarinet. It's a great instrument. It is. It's probably like number 3 to 5 on the chart of top 10 instruments. Guitar is number 1, of course. Piano is close. I do get pedal envy. Yeah, that's about it though. I have vibrato. Yeah, and I know Zena's shaking her head going, yeah, vibrato. I graduated from New England Conservatory, and I kind of took a year to work. I worked behind the counter at Pemberton Market in Cambridge. I had worked many non-musical jobs, and then I got one of my earliest music jobs that kind of started my career were 2 things at once. I started working with young audiences of Massachusetts, giving educational, entertaining programs to schools and community centers around Massachusetts, and I took it much further and still do all ages programs. Kids are awesome. They tell you when you're boring. They doesn't matter how many notes you hit. If you can't move them, they'll tell you. And then I also got a teaching job at the Community Music Center of Boston in the South End. That was before the South End was like really like, bougie type of thing. And so I enjoyed that. I much more enjoyed teaching than I did being behind the counter. And so I kept taking teaching jobs. I took pretty much anything I could do to play music. And looking back, that willingness to do anything music, I think very much influenced me now in the sense of, specifically arranging. I played weddings, and I would get asked to arrange Bernstein, arrange pop music, arrange a lot of Handel for guitar. And I had to learn how to do that. And so I started doing that in college and then kept doing it. I really enjoyed that. I had started playing classical guitar when I was about 16. I had played electric guitar before that because, rock star. And that's what I knew. I grew up in Denver. I think I went to the orchestra twice in my life before that. Though my mom loves Stephen Sondheim, so I listened to a lot of Stephen Sondheim. and other Broadway plays. Then my mind goes on tangents. So there, I did a lot of arranging, and I continue to arrange. And I think I'm up to about 70 different works. And then I would often take piano pieces. Actually, when I started playing classical guitar, it was purely, I had seen a video of Andres Segovia in my high school Spanish class, and he was playing at El Prado, the museum in Madrid. And there was Victoria de los Angeles, who was singing, and Alicia de la Rocha, who played piano. And Segovia played Asturias Leyenda by Itzhak Albeniz. And I was like, that's the greatest piece I've ever heard. Because also the Doors used that in their tune, Spanish Caravan. Robbie Krieger had learned some flamenco. So da 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 dee da bum ba dee da bum. And take me, Spanish Caravan. Yes, I know you can. And so I thought it was originally for guitar. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And I didn't know it was for piano until a few years later. I think naivete has saved me quite a bit. If I knew life was going to be like this, I knew it was going to be that hard, I didn't know anyone who played guitar. So it was like, oh, that'll be easy. I'll be the only one out there. That you could call it ignorance, but there was no internet back then, thankfully. So I started playing classical guitar, and I worked all summer to buy a very cheap guitar. And so I didn't have to play on an electric or a steel string. And I looked for a teacher, and that started it. And I just knew I wanted to go to school as far away from Colorado as I could. And I had been to Boston to visit a brother who was in Providence. And I just started calling up schools. You know those thick books that we used to have for colleges, and you'd flip through by regions? I did that. And I said, oh, they have a music program. So I went to Boston University for 1 year. They didn't know they had a guitar program, but they did. And then I transferred to the New England Conservatory. And there I studied with David Leisner and later Elliot Fisk. And on the side, I was doing flamenco. And I loved it. Absolutely adored it. My parents would, or my grandmother would call me and say, did you watch Johnny Elway play for the Broncos? I don't miss it at all. Never did. I haven't skied since I was 19. I broke my thumbnail on the first run, and I said, that's a month to get my thumbnail back. And I retired from skiing. I still do hot springs, but not skiing. And I said, I want to play music. And so I didn't know what that meant. Again, ignorance, naivete. I just knew I wanted to play music. And so I had to figure out how to make a living because everyone says you can't. And when someone tells me I can't do something, I have a bad shoulder that my beautiful wife had helped me fix from an injury in college. But I also have a big chip on the shoulder. If someone tells me I can't do something, I also will take as much time as I need to do it. But I just say there's always a way. And so I was teaching at the Community Music Center in Boston, got a couple other jobs because I enjoyed working with kids especially. And playing for a wedding, I think, is one of the most gorgeous things a person can do. I'm bringing beauty to a beautiful moment. And that was most of my mid-20s, just trying to pay the bills. And around 2006, I started a group called Confuego. I had quickly realized that, Spanish music especially, that's why I have long hair. I hated when people would be like, "Oh, you're good at guitar and you look Spanish. Yeah, that's why you're good." And I was like, "No." So I cut my hair, and I had a nice little eraser haircut. Like I looked average, like everyone. Yes, and then people would be like, "Oh, you are good, but you don't look." And a friend of mine Japanese friend of mine said, you have hair. I remember your hair, and you're an entertainer. You have to grow your hair. So, and I've wanted long hair since I was a little kid. So I come from the house of Samson, I like to say, but with better taste in women. And that's nice. Made a sale on Bandcamp. That's wonderful. And then I started this Con Fuego, and I started working with a dancer, and we would do classical music, Spanish classical music, and she would choreograph to it, and I would add flamenco elements. And that was one of the best educations I ever had, because I knew didn't want to be a traditional flamenco guitarist. That's like I can read a lead sheet, but I would never call myself a jazz guitarist. I have too much respect for people who know what they're doing to say, yeah, hire me. I'm not that desperate, and I like good music. And so the dancer La Conja just started kicking my butt, and I remember one lesson while we were rehearsing, and she started screaming at me in Spanish, and I'm like, Conja, my Spanish isn't good enough. I know you're cursing. What are you saying? She said, stop reading the music. That's not where the rhythm is. And she hit me, and she's like, it's here, it's here. And it was like, yeah, that is where music comes from. And that I did that very seriously for about 10 years. And while at that time, especially in school, I was very much into contemporary music. I couldn't play it all. I was still too green, but I would go to so many contemporary music concerts. I found it so exciting to be hearing something for the first time, or hear something that made me kind of question reality, and what sound is and my relationship to sound. If I didn't like something, was it because it was different, or was it because I didn't understand? Was it because it was by someone that I'm not supposed to like? Or, my teacher doesn't like it, so I'm not going to like it, that type of thing. And so while doing teaching and Con Fuego and school programs and playing the occasional concert, sorry, turn that off, I just started playing more contemporary music. And I put out my first album in 2006 called Tracing a Wheel on Water, which is one of the best title tracks, one of the best pieces of music, the title track that I've played. It's minimalist, but it's fantastic. It's moving. Everyone calls it relaxing except for me, because it's, you can't drop an eighth note. And on that album, I recorded a lullaby from Cuba called Canción de Cuna. And the lullaby, the words are supposed to be, you have to cover your feet at night while you sleep, or else little monsters will eat your toes. And what's beautiful is that it doesn't sound like that at all. That's a very Latin American thing. You have very beautiful melodies and very dark words. And people kept talking about that piece. And it was just annoying, because I would play flamenco, I'd play Bach, I'd play contemporary music, and they go, oh, that lullaby though. Oh, that was gorgeous. And my wife, Catherine, here she is. Hi. She's definitely the prettier half of the two of us. She said, you should do an album of lullabies. And I just hated that idea. I think music is an interactive and active listening experience. And the tracks to relax is that's just the death knell of classical music. Like, listen to me, it'll make you relax. No, it should be, listen to me, I'm going to rock your world and make you question everything about it. And so I said, no, I won't do a lullaby album. But she is smarter than me. And so it was in the back of my head. And I found an arrangement of Summertime by the great Japanese composer Toru Takemitsu. And I was playing it. I'm like, this is amazing. And I realized I always look at the originals, and Gershwin's original says Summertime, and in parentheses, lullaby. And I went, oh, eureka, that's an idea. And so I started the new lullaby project in 2007, started asking composers to write brief pieces in the genre of a lullaby. And I premiered the first in '07 and then got more just by talking to composers. I would go to concerts and I'd ask a composer, have you ever written for guitar? Often not. And I'd say, well, I have this project called the New Lullaby Project, 3 to 5 minute piece. And most composers are actually afraid of writing for the guitar because it, like the harp or any instrument, it has its ways. I have 4 middle C's, each with a different quality. And but it's a lullaby, and who's afraid of a lullaby? And that was it. And I got enough composers to make an album that came out in 2010. And also I found that audiences weren't afraid of lullabies. They were afraid of contemporary music. Opus 45B number 3, the eyes glaze over and they're like, what's E flat? I don't know. But if that same piece had been titled The Moon Through the Window Dances or something along this, the audience is pretty amazing. And so on that note, I just did an all lullaby concert in Newport for Newport Classical, and we had bunches of kids and they're listening to 12-tone, microtonal, polyphonic music. I'm bending strings. These are pieces that people aren't supposed to like. And they were just 48 minutes. Awesome. It was just awesome. And so that project, the first album came out in 2010. I thought it was be done. And then composers kept sending me lullabies. And I'm a sucker, or just, I don't know. I have a hard time saying no. Someone created something. Again, this is that thing going back to music. It's always back to music. There's a spark in us, in everyone. And education, class, color, sex, it doesn't matter. There's that creation. And I feel if someone creates something, there's something, it's my job as a performer to find that special something. Maybe it's the blue note in jazz, maybe it's rasa in Indian music, it's duende in Spanish music. That is there. And so I would just get these lullabies and I would look through, and some I liked better, some were better prepared, but it also allowed me to create relationships with composers. And so those relationships have probably taken me further around the country and actually the world than anything else. A composer would be a teacher at a school or an alumni, and they'd give my name or say, come and play. And nothing against dead composers, but they don't do much for you, at the end of the day. And, and I don't play the music for the opportunity to go travel. I play the music because I love the music. And I know I have colleagues who they're like, hey, I have to learn this for a grant. I don't like it. That's not, I don't do it that way, because I think if we don't love what we do, it comes through to the audience, and then the audience is poisoned by our lack of love. And that just, no, I have a responsibility to do a great job and hope that people come away on this one thing to want to hear more. And if someone walks away and says, I didn't like that piece, I don't want it to be my fault. Like, wait, I didn't play it well. Give it another try. And there are pieces that do require more listening, and I get that. But it won't be because I didn't do my work prior. So that first album came out in 2010. And then when in 99, I think it was, I went to Spain, 1999. And I went to Cordoba and I got to hear a concert. I was there for a festival. And I heard a woman play this Japanese piece called The Legend of Hagoromo. And I was just floored. I bought the music when I got back to Boston, and I looked at the music and I said, no way. And years later, we had a fire in '07. That was a long time ago. It feels like yesterday. And, when that type of thing, house fire happens, I was very much going, whoa, I just lost all my sheet music. I lost 6 of my 7 instruments, and we had to move a lot. It sucked. Don't do it. Don't have a fire. Have a good insurance, especially for instruments. If you're self-employed, get separate rider or instrument insurance because your house will not cover it if you don't have a separate business rider. They will say it's personal property, business property, and you only have personal coverage, and they'll give you a check for $2,500. I know this because that was me. And so I slowly got my music collection back and built it up over time. But that piece, I just sat there and go, I almost died. And I haven't played all the music I want to play. And so I learned this Legend of Hagoromo, this 18-minute piece. And that changed everything. I think it made me work so hard, so many extended techniques, and people loved it. It's the only time really that I've had standing ovations over and over and over and over again. Tracing a Wheel on Water, I've probably played 300 times in concert. Legend of Hagoromo, probably I think I'm at 450, roughly. And definitely the most of any piece I've played in public. And I made an album of it. It was the second album in the world, but the first one to actually be distributed, I think, of the piece, and took a couple lullabies. Everything on that album is Japanese connected. And I remember I came downstairs one day. Catherine had it on had put the record on, and I didn't recognize it. I was like, "Oh, this sounds good. Oh, whoever's playing is doing a really good job. What?" And it hit me like a ton of breath. Oh, that's me. And it was the first time I really liked what I was doing, and I was, I don't need to re-record that whole album. And as I feel about most of my albums, I can re-record. That one I don't. And that was a very big life change moment. And it's such a great piece that it opened up. And I was such a proponent of this piece, advocate, that I wanted to play it everywhere. And it opened many doors. And it got me onto a label out of the UK called Stone Records. I sent that album out to 27 different labels, and actually got a response from Deutsche Grammophon. They actually liked the album quite a bit, but it didn't fit their musical styling. They're much more traditional, Villalobos, Tarrega, Albeniz, and not everyone has taste. That's all I can say. We all have a spark, but we don't all have taste. And this label really liked it. And I said, "Why do you like it?" And he said, "Well, I played it for my 16-year-old son, and he thought it was one of the greatest albums he'd heard. And if a 16-year-old likes it, it's a good thing." So he signed me, and that was awesome. Opened some doors. Just before that, in 2013, I got hired in 2010, I started at Boston Conservatory. And it was one of those things where I was called, and they said, "Would you be willing to interview for this position?" And I said, "Sure. Do you need anything?" They said, "No, we know all about you." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Just print out an updated resume." I was like, "Cool." Got the job and was teaching. And I recalled a conversation I had with Stephen Drury, the great pianist at NEC, New England Conservatory. And he had told me years earlier that John Cage wrote a piece for piano and violin called Six Melodies. Amazing work, Zena. And he thought it would work well on guitar. And so I followed up and I arranged it and put it on my first faculty recital at Boston Conservatory. And a friend was there, an older friend who's a violinist, and he said, "Look, you should talk to Edition Peters, send them a video, see what they think." And I did. And I think they took 6 months to get back to me. And after I followed up a couple times, and they said, "We like this, we're going to publish it." And I was like, awesome. Because they could have said, "We like this, here's the bill for playing this, doing the arrangement." And they didn't do that, which was very nice. Wise Music, who bought Edition Peters, has done that. So just so you know. They published it, and I didn't expect much of it. And they called me about 6 months later and they said, "It's sold. We're shocked. Would you be willing to do a solo collection?" And I had already started down that rabbit hole. And so I did 7 solos and then a piece for prepared guitar duo. and made an album. And the scores were published. The solos were published in 2018. The album came out in 6 months later, and the duo for prepared guitars, because of COVID, came out right after COVID. And that, like all of these other things, like the lullabies, Con Fuego, it opened a door of connections that I didn't expect. I just loved the music and would put in the time. No one was paying me to do the arrangements. It was just the curiosity and kind of saying, I love the music of John Cage that I had heard, which wasn't that much. But I had read a lot of his writings, and I thought he was just fascinating. And so I started those arrangements, and they got published. And one reviewer said, I'm now the authority of John Cage on guitar, which is, no, I'm not. I'm just a guy who plays guitar and plays John Cage. I do know a lot, but that's not much. And then that opened a door to the John Cage Trust, which is at Bard College, and starting a relationship with them. And I've since been interviewed by them, and I've done interviews for them for their radio program, All Things Cage, highly recommend. And I was invited to a residency 2 summers ago, 24, and got to go through these original scores and his notes. And it was, the hair on my neck was up. It was just so neat to be around his music like that and his art. And those things all kind of led me. I mean, there's probably 50 million other things that have happened. But I can say all of those events were not expected. I didn't make plans. I have 1 degree. I'm not supposed to be teaching at a public university. I had a public university teaching position for 12 years. The dean said, do you know you only have 1 degree? I said, yes, thank you. It's a good degree. Part of it was because I did a year at BU, my last year of the New England Conservatory was all graduate level classes. They wouldn't give me graduate credit, but it was like, where do I go study after this? And then I met my Russian teacher, and I was with him for 7 years at his house, 3 to 6 hours a week. And there was no Christmas break, in part because it's Russian Christmas. This is in January, and I don't celebrate Christmas. So he'd call me up on Christmas Day. Iran, come over. Let's have a lesson. And I would walk out just exhausted, but beautifully exhausted. And it was more of an apprenticeship. And I didn't know what exactly a music career. I mean, I knew I wasn't a competition person. I mean, nothing against competitions, but they are the least creative thing a person can do in the music field. And I get it. Like our growth is we start as little kids. Here's how to hold it. Here's what you do. And I get that. Like you're told what to do. And then you go into high school, you're told what to do, and you start preparing for competitions or orchestra placements. And then you have to get ready for college, which means, again, you're auditioning, which is like a competition. And then you're in college, you have to please your teacher, because if you don't please your teacher, you don't get any gigs. And so you're constantly then being told what to do. And then, oh, wait, I need 2 more degrees because I don't want to pay back my loans, or I'm not ready, or I need a visa. There's 100 reasons. And then it's like, you graduate, be creative. And our society that's not how our society is built. Our society says if you haven't made it by 25, you're a failure, or you're going to struggle for the rest of your life. Hurry, find insurance as quick as you can. And it's not. I played rock music. I thought I'd be dead at 27, honestly. Like that, it just wasn't my thing. That's Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Hendrix. They all died at 27. You guys are all classical, I know. And then, but really important, I should say, before someone's going to ask me a question, I know Val's thinking of 3 right now. This one, say hi, honey.
Hi.
Say hi.
Hi.
I met her my last year of conservatory, and Here, you can say hi again.
Hello.
She doesn't want me to keep her on the camera, so I have to be very sparse with this because she'll come after me later. I had a shoulder injury playing sports, and I couldn't play. I would play with my shoulder up like this, and it was just weak, and it had healed. Instead of like this, it had healed like that. So there was a big bone sticking up about an inch.
And more.
And I had a lot of other health issues early. And I met Catherine, and she said she could fix it. I laughed at her. But she was the only person I'd been to who had been positive about it. If you heard it, if it falls apart, we can build it again. And so I said, okay. And I turned to a friend of mine the night I met her. I said, I could totally marry her. And I did. Just how it worked. And yeah, there's a bet. One, that was the only competition that ever mattered. I will be honest with you. It's the only one I ever really won, and it's still paying me back years later. A lot of investment, but it was worth it. Love you. We just celebrated 25 years this summer, so there you go. Quarter of a century, baby. But she was also one of the first people to like what I did, and I knew it wasn't because I was paying her. You know, oh, there's something about how you play I like. And she's not trained in music, but often she'll come in and she goes, is that supposed to be a dance? I go, yeah, it's supposed to be a waltz. She goes, oh, just keep practicing. You'll get it. You know, find the dance. She's very, very gentle. No. But because I had the health issues, she was also like, here's a pile of books you're going to read about how to take care of yourself and diet. And I grew up, my dad was a pediatrician. I grew up on every antibiotic you can think of, and they didn't make me happy or healthy. Not that I'm against medical, but there's a time and a place. And so oh, thank you, Jenny. You're so nice. You're a lovely team. We are a team. Though sometimes I do a lot, like navigator and drive and like hand me an apple. You know, anyway. So the part of like most of my 20s was actually taking care of health stuff. Balancing driving a lot because we were living in central Massachusetts, and 500 to 700 miles a week to drive for gigs, for teaching. And then, fixing back problems, shoulder problems, and it took a long time, but without Catalin.
Yes. I'm doing many things at the same time. So what is it?
Without her, there's none of this. None. And you can put that if I ever screw up and then she wants a divorce, you guys can, this is all being recorded. It is in part because of her. It got to the point where the practice, the yoga and the healing was as important as my guitar practice. And so I have a little like spreadsheet that lists my pieces, the days of the week, and I just keep track of what I'm practicing. And it got to the point that I started putting in, yoga exercise. It's not typical yoga, but rest and restructure and rehabilitation, bringing back. I mean, sitting like this for 5 hours a day is not a good thing for one's back, shoulder, and spirit. And so good food. I had to change my diet completely. I don't eat sugar. That was just bravo, Catherine. There you go. You got a bravo, Catherine. Yeah, Terry. Boom.
Yes.
And so that alongside, and it's actually interesting, my Russian teacher, Dmitry Goryachev, when I finally he invited me to play for his students. And when he introduced me, his young students, I was a special guest. And he introduced me, he had Catherine get up and said, we are his teachers. Because I would be in a lesson and Dima would like grab my hand and say, Iran, we must work on your middle finger. It is not working like it should be. There's something wrong. Next week, we work on your finger. And then Catherine and I would be driving, and she'd hold my hand and start giving me shiatsu, which is like acupuncture with with fingers. And she'd be like twisting and stretching my fingers. She goes, "What is in this middle finger?" And I'm like sitting there going, "Do they talk on the phone?" Like, and I wouldn't ever say anything. And the next week I'd come in and Dima would go, "Elon, you fixed your middle finger." And I'd be like, and so he realized later on that the relationship of the body, it's not just learning the instrument, it's tuning the body. And Catherine has helped me do that for years. And she is a great moral support, and all those other things that come with a great partner and lover. And she inspires poetry, and I have to make good coffee or else she's not happy. So there you go, babe.
Very true.
Yeah, it's very true. So so I taught at Boston Conservatory 4 years. They cut the program prior to merging with with Berkeley. There are many reasons there that I've been told, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm fine. They're missing out. And then I taught for 12 years at UMass Boston until after COVID. I just couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't a healthy relationship. And then last October in 24, I was brought into the extended education department, or extended ed, I don't know what they call it, at the New England Conservatory. And so I give them a little bit of my time, and I teach private lessons and coach. I currently have a wonderful violin guitar duo and some private students. And then, a big thing again, God, I built this studio in hi honey, in 2020. The city of Boston said my house was too big and I wasn't allowed to have a living space in my basement. They wanted me to turn it into a multi-family house, which I refused, even though I'd been paying taxes on this. And it's a horrible, someday I'll tell you the story of this. Anyway, and so I decided to take one of the rooms and build a recording studio. And we moved Catherine's offices downstairs for her books. And it's all tax deductible now. This is all about business. And I started recording. I've recorded 5 full albums and 2 EPs since 2020. Multiple solos of composers who've asked me to record for them. And I taught myself how to use Logic. So I do the editing. I have good friends who can make my recording sound better. And then in 21, a producer I was working with said, "You should really compose because you'll get an extra share of streaming." Streaming is broken into 3, the publishing, composition, and performing. And I said, "Cool." And I said, no, like really quickly. I was sitting right here too. And like knee-jerk reaction. And I went, "God, that sounded so pathetic." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "I just said no so quickly." And I said, "I'll tell you what, give me a couple weeks and I'll mess around with stuff." And I wrote 28 minutes worth of music in 2 weeks, recorded it 2 weeks after that. And that was my first album, Honey Cadence. It's an EP. And it is my most popular album. It has 13 million streams, which is insane. And it opened the door to actually writing down all these feelings that I'd had, or sounds that were in me. And I've since, I'm in the midst of finishing up a set of piano solos. And I haven't come up with the title yet, but they're pretty fun. The first one was premiered in 2024 by John McDonald at Tufts University. And I think I'm up to 5. Val. We might have fun. And in December, the first work I've written for choir and guitar is being premiered by the Professional Choir Cantorai, professional choir out of Denver, Colorado. And we're doing 6 performances of that on a concert of a lot of guitar and choir holiday music, which is awesome. And so I'm now with the American Composers Alliance. They publish my original works and the collection of lullabies. Okay, there you are. That's my life. And yeah, questions. Valerie, come on.
Well, I don't have one just yet, but I've been transfixed by this story. I'm just saying. It's really, thank you. Thank you for how honestly you shared that, and so interesting. Every new connection that you make, it leads to something. That is so cool. That is just so cool.
Yes, Carolyn.
So my question is, how do you form these relationships with the different performers? I know you traveled with one man that we heard you perform with
Matthew Hope.
UMass Boston.
Yeah.
And then, you end up in a silo playing music. It's like, how do you get around doing all these different things?
Well, you saw me, I think, with Peter Jansen, a guitarist.
Right.
He was faculty at UMass Boston, and we started talking. And he said, "Would you like to do some concerts together?" It was supposed to be steel and nylon, and then at the last minute, he did nylon as well. And I, for better or for worse, I'm not great at saying no. And I learned from everything, but also something I started doing really consciously after the legend of Hagoromo is what scares me. And I don't, everyone has a reason for their life. And maybe I'm making it too heavy or big, but I want this to be my last time around, if that makes any sense. Like in Buddhism, you are reborn multiple times until you reach your spot. In Judaism, you're not reborn. I'm a Jew. And, I think one of the words that scared me, I know what it was. American Graffiti. Has everyone seen American Graffiti? No, maybe. Okay, it's from like the 70s. Come on, guys. Anyway, at the very end, one of the main characters is supposed to the two of the main characters are supposed to go to New York and find, one's going to become a writer and the other one's going to do his thing. And, and one of them stays back because his girlfriend doesn't want to leave Petaluma, California. And at the very end, they say, what happens to them? One went to New York and became a writer, and the other one became an insurance salesman in Petaluma, California. And I went, oh no. Like the idea of living with regret has scared me since I was in high school. Like I did not want high school to be my greatest memory. I think life should kind of go up like this, and you die, great. Or maybe you hit the pinnacle and the next day it drops a little bit and then you die. Like Segovia played until he was 93. Like that's kind of awesome. Think of Casals, similar. And so when things would scare me, I would or I didn't know what to do. And I think this is that naivete, ignorance. I've never known what to do. And I think anyone who tells you this is how to have a career they're going to steal your money or they're full of it. There is no one way. And especially as a classical guitarist, there's no orchestra I can join. I get hired by groups once every 5 or 6 years. I've played with orchestra many times, but it's on occasion and it's always the same piece. So I knew from the get-go I'd have to be creative. I did speech and debate in high school. I was third in the state of Colorado for interpretation of poetry. And so speaking to people, speaking on stage wasn't hard. I was very shy outside of stage. I fixed this. And so when I was first performing, I knew my strength was being able to speak on stage. Even if I wasn't the best yet at my instrument, I could present. And I knew that right away at the New England Conservatory and my recitals. My teacher would always comment, "You always do such very good introductions," or you have a way of keeping people engaged. But you totally missed the B section of the saraband. And then I realized soon after college that everybody is shy and scared. Or most people, unless you're a politician, everybody is shy. No one likes to go to places where they know no one. or want to break the ice. And knowing that, realizing that, made it that, oh, well, if we're all in the same position, what do I want? I would want someone to come up to me and say, hey, what did you think of the concert? And so I just started doing that with people and breaking the ice and being making sure if it was a woman that I wasn't hitting on them. I'd be like, yeah, my wife really liked that concert. What did you think of it? And then following up with composers. Composers really like it if you play their music. And I would organize concerts. I'd rent space. I would do faculty recitals. And I would try and engage people. And sometimes it works. There's a lot of composers. I've played their piece a couple times, and that's that. And and then I would look for opportunities. I've applied for a lot of grants, way more. I've applied to so many things that I've never received. But I don't tell you guys that on Facebook. Every once in a while I do. I'll put like, by the way, I got 4 grants this year, but I applied to 17. Yeah, it's in music. You do 50 things, you get paid for 2. And like, okay, going to playing in a silo at the Art OMI residency. The new head of the John Cage Trust at Bard College, Jeffrey Leppendorf, took over in March, and I'm friends with the former head, Laura Kuhn, and I write her and say, how are things? And she tells me this is what's up. I go, I'd love to meet Jeffrey. I applied for this position. It wasn't fit for me, but I applied just to see. And she said, you should come meet him. Catherine and I, we organized a day, and Catherine and I went. It was 3.5 hours away. We had lunch, got on very well, and I asked a lot of questions about him. And, kudos to my mom, because, she would say, don't talk about yourself all the time. Now, to the point that I had really little confidence for years. But I could go into a situation and sit and ask questions, and I actually am interested in other people. I think it's kind of like new music. You can't fake it. And every once in a while you meet someone who's just really boring, but not often. Everyone's got a story, usually 50. And so Jeffrey and I hit it off, and he said, by the way, I do this residency. Have you ever heard of it? Never heard of it. It's more of a jazz improv arts residency, and it's amazing. And he said, why don't you come and stay overnight? And I was like, go somewhere and not get paid? I mean, a lot of things I've done is because, or not done, is because it costs money. And I said, okay. And I committed to it, and he invited me, and I went there, and they're like, by the way, there's a silo. You got to go play in the silo. And I did, and it was like, whoa. And I happened to have my phone. I didn't have a stand. That's why it's looking up my nose. And just, yeah. And that often, a lot of the connections I've made is just because I started talking to someone. I invite them to coffee. I will say, have you written for guitar? If they say yes, okay, where can I find the music? And I think the desire to engage people on their terms, it's just like playing for kids. I mean, adults really aren't any different than kids. I just changed the language a little bit, and I can play longer pieces. But the goal for me has always been some kind of connection. And to be like, this is the most kick-ass music you will ever hear, and I'm going to share it with you, and you're going to be as excited as I am. And most people take that. I did a micro opera last year where I had to sing, act, and perform all solo. Richard Cameron Wolf's called Heretic. It's on YouTube. And 17 minutes. And I got to, I just found the piece, and it scared the living bejeebies out of me. I read an email from a publisher, here are the latest pieces. And that score said guitar voice, micro opera. I clicked on it and I went, oh, that scares me. I don't sing. Like, I had to be in choir. I didn't want to be in choir. I was told not to sing as a little kid. I did get to sing under Robert Shaw at BU doing the Brahms Requiem. I started liking singing after that. But even at New England Conservatory, they made me be in choir. In the last semester, I said, what if I find a piece? I have found a piece for choir and guitar by Mario Castelnuovo Tedesco, wonderful American Sephardic composer. And I said, what if we played this? Could I do that for my choir credit? And the conductor was like, yeah. And she got one of her grad students to conduct us, Orlando Sela. And 1998, I'd been playing guitar for 2.5 years. I learned this piece. It was the first time playing with a conductor. And it's basically a small concerto for guitar. And I'm there with 15 wonderful singers, or 16, I think it was. And it was mind blowing. And it was like, oh, this is awesome. And I organized it. They got us the space, but I paid for the recording, and just thought this would be good. And I've since played that piece well over a dozen times with many different groups. And I don't know, I think just this desire to play music and be willing to search for music, go to the library and go, oh, this looks interesting. And then convince people. Like most guitarists don't know who John Cage is. And I've shown scores to people, and then they're like, how'd you get on Audition Peters? I'm like, John Cage. Who's John Cage? Lullabies. I'm still made fun of by a lot of guitarists because they see it as children's music. But I've premiered 81 of these things. I still don't sleep well, but I can go and I can say to presenters, I can do a concert, but I can also do a family program about Spanish music, Latin American music, or contemporary music. And they sit there and they're like, oh, please, here. Now, they don't give me enough money, but they do say, here's some money for this. And so I think, like young audiences, I took a class at NEC that talked about creating educational programs. And I was like, oh, I could do that. And I think every musician should have to go play for students and figure out, how do you present a sonata? How do you, to a group of kids who may say, you got me for 3 minutes and it's a 6-minute sonata. Oh, I'm not going to take repeats. Every musician should listen to Pete Seeger's children's concert, because you can hear him switch on a dime when he starts to lose his audience. It was a great education. I love classical music. I love the formality. I love respecting the form. But at the end of the day, it's just music. It's just sound. And especially as I do arrangements, I have to make it work for me. It's not the composer who's on stage. It's me representing that composer. And if I'm playing Bach and someone doesn't like it, they're going to blame me. If I'm playing a contemporary piece and someone doesn't like it, they're going to blame the composer. And I hate that. And so I'm always looking at those. I went to the Mu Phi Epsilon convention, started talking to people. I sat at a different table every day at lunch purposefully so I could meet more people. Not for any gig or anything like that. I did get a concert out of it. What's her name? McCallum. I'm forgetting her first name. Played a house concert. It was wonderful. But I would go hang out with the kids. I'd go hang out with the adults, or I say students, sorry, students and adults, in part just to hear what are people doing? What are people doing differently? What am I not doing? And so I think the easiest thing that I do is playing music, and it's all this other stuff that I need to work on a daily basis. I have to remember that I need to write emails. I need to call people. Sometimes I don't want to do it. And then other times I'm like, just go with it. So, does that answer your question, Carolyn? Because I can kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was carefully planned out, orchestrated timeline. I'm surprised. Well, congratulations how it's fallen together.
It is, I don't know, man. I still, I mean, I have bigger goals. I don't tell people those goals, but I did a leadership course like when I was like 19, and there was some exercise when they said, well, the most successful person has to be at the front of the line, and then organize your whole group, most successful to least successful, however you want to define it. And God, we argued. And finally, in the most American way, we got in a line based on how much money each person made. And I was a student. I think I had made, $2,000 or $3,000 that year doing weddings, very little. I was in debt. And at the end, the host of this whole thing kind of sat there and said, why'd you pick that as your definition of success? And are you happy? And then we had to, I was like, oh, we could reline it up. I mean, if we go by hair, I'm a pretty successful person. Nail length, I got that. And I think, what was it? I thought of something last night as I was thinking about this, is around that idea of success. Because a lot of people say careers in music are hard. No, there's so many ways to have a career in music. I mean, really so many ways, from the administrative to recording to producing to performing. Everyone wants to be a performer, but that's just, you have to be really good from an early age. And that still doesn't, we think it's about the instrument. Like there's a point where everyone kind of is all really good. There's something else about it. But to me, it is that idea of happiness. I wanted a music life. My first business was music and life program, life in music and music in life. And that would be success. And that was my first DBA. I've since changed it because I got bad advice, but that's okay. But for me, it is doing good work, getting a decent reward, getting paid or compensated in some form, and love, and you have happiness. Like that to me is it. And in that case, I could have been a lawyer and worked just as many hours, wouldn't have my hair, I know that. And I wouldn't be happy. I mean, you get paid, but most of the lawyers I know look at me and go, wow, I kind of wish I had stuck with it. And for me, the work that I'm not paid, all that practice, it's worth it. I love practice. I absolutely adore it. So, yeah. Jenny, do you have a question? This is what I do in schools, by the way. I pick random people. They hate me. No. Terry, do you have a question? Bev, do you have a question?
Terry's got one in the chat. Did you see this one?
Oh, I missed that. Have you thought of expanding into musical theater or other genre? I have been asking that of Nick White and Scott Wheeler, the same question. I love Scott Wheeler. Love Scott Wheeler. He wrote me one of my earliest lullabies, Nachtlied, from my album New Lullaby. Great music. His opera writing is beautiful. Musical theater, I'm assuming you mean performing. No. In part because I have great respect for people who do that. And I would have to learn the singing, the nasal singing. But I did sing Giants in the Sky by Sondheim as a kid a lot. I love that song. Giants in the Sky. But it's a tenor. I'm not a, yeah. Writing it, I won't say no because I don't know. I'm still learning about composition, and sometimes things flow so easily and it comes out and it's like done. And other times I struggle and I don't touch it. So yeah, and the musical theater side, I listen to it. Writing one, not yet. I did write the lyrics to my cider meditation, the choir guitar piece. And I have a lot of poetry I wrote. So I do think it could happen. Part of it is learning time, like how to do time. Like composing takes a lot of time. And I still need to practice. And I can only sit in front of my computer for so long. I do have my I don't write on my computer. I have my little moleskin. See?
Mm.
Oh, wait, there it is.
Mm.
All the pieces. Whee!
Oh, yeah. Ah.
Yeah. What piece is that? That's my piano piece. Yeah, I haven't figured out the title. I'll send it to you. Once it's edited down, I have to do that. That's a good question, Terry. Thank you. See, you get thanks when you ask questions. Zena, do you have a question?
Well, I wanted to thank you. I'm going to have to get off in about 2 minutes, but I just, first of all, you are so humble, and second of all, you have such enthusiasm, and it shows in all that you do, and I so appreciate that, and bravo. And yes, it's not easy, and yes, there's so many things that we do that maybe people don't know about, and there are disappointments along the way, and there's struggles along the way, but you're really a person who perseveres and puts your heart into everything, and we're so proud of you, and again, thanks for sharing all of this.
Thank you, Zena. Oh, you just made my heart smile.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, thank you, Zena. We'll see you soon, and
Oh,
we still have to play together.
right.
Okay. See, Carolyn, that's how it works. A decent amount of guilt with a lot of enthusiasm.
Erin, thank you. This has been
Oh,
really, like Zena said, you are so humble. You are, but have done so much, have accomplished so much. We're very proud of you and very proud that you're a part of us in 100 ways. Thank you.
and Val, I was thinking about how you asked me about social media.
Mm.
Tell you a secret. I have no idea how it works. No one knows the algorithms. Everyone figures it out for a week and then they change the algorithm.
Mm.
The I don't pay for it. I have a couple things that I pay for, but really I just want to share what I do. And that's why I have a newsletter. And hey, I have a concert, thought you'd like to know. And if someone doesn't like it, they don't have to read it. They can block me. I don't even know. But I have a quick aside. I send a newsletter out, and Catherine, every time I send it, she goes, "How many?" And I'm like, It's okay, only 6." That means send me your email, Terry, and I'll add you to it. Put it in the chat. What it is the more good news I have, the pattern I have figured out is the more guitarists unsubscribe from my newsletter.
That right?
It's not scientific, but I have kept track. And you can't control how other people respond. All I can do is put it out there as organically as I can. I do not try and show off. There are things I think it can be very good to keep your cards close to you. There are certain things I don't share anymore because I did get pushback in the sense of people would start making comments about finances and all this. And I'm like, but you can't control that. So I think the more you put up there, the more I'll know about it. There are 3 concerts this week of guitarists I didn't know about until the day of or the day after. And I didn't go to any of them, and I didn't tell my students. I think a society of more music is beautiful, especially good music. My only rule is you can't be boring, because people remember that and they won't go to concerts if it's a boring concert. So I will make up for any note mistake or anything with an extreme amount of energy, and I will give way more than I'm supposed to, but it feels like that's what I have to do. And maybe I can't say exactly where that comes from, but I do think if we have good health and we have good people and support, like the MUFIs of Boston, we can make great music. Yeah. And what's the point of competing? So stupid.
Agreed.
So thank you.
Agreed.
Thank
So
you.
Aaron, it's Jenny. When is your book coming out that you and Catherine write that to tell us how to take care of ourselves, how to eat right so that we can be the musicians that we want to be?
We actually, over COVID, we started sketching some stuff, and we have an old house that has required lots of attention. And then COVID hit, so career changed quite a bit for a while. But we're working on it. We keep
But we never
sketching.
kept our discipline.
Yeah, we never stopped doing what we do. We just have to start writing it down more,
Yes.
and figuring out how to present it. I will say, kind of along the lines of what do you call it? My anti Dunkin' Donut and Croc thing. Highly recommend reading the book Sugar Blues by William Dufty, Dufty. Amazing book on history of sugar. And that was one of the books Catherine made me read, and started me down that road, or this road. And when I go on tour, I have numbers of supplements. I have my little portable espresso maker. I've kind of learned life isn't easy in a sense. Like I tell my college students, it doesn't get easier. There is no more time. You either take the time or you don't. And I don't need to watch a football game. Nothing against football. And I'm not judging anyone. It's just not for me. I watch the highlights and then I can have conversations about it. I don't want to sit in traffic for 3 hours. So we moved into the city after the fire. I had to learn how it works, and I have not figured it out. I'm still learning very much. I started with a management company this summer, Rhizome Arts Management, which I hope will work out. I have hired multiple assistants. I've started with management companies in the past, and they never worked, but this one, it might work. Last year, I went to Chamber Music America conference in Houston, first time, and I ended up getting the concert at Newport through that, first time. I didn't showcase anything. I went to APAP, which is a performing arts get together in New York with about 4,000 people. Chamber Music America is about 350, just to give you size wise, but it encompasses all music genres, and classical is very small. It is very humbling to go to non-classical centric events and find out how little people know about what we do. I do not play flamingo. I play flamenco. It's true. We are the center of our worlds. We live in a bubble. I went to a conservatory. It was like everyone knew who Schnittke was. Like that wasn't anything. That is not the general population. And I think once classical music musicians realize that, we will reach people in a new way. And I don't mean dumbing it down. I am absolutely aghast at watered down classical music. I don't think everything needs to be Chekhov. Nothing against Tchaikovsky, but not everything needs to be, Christmas music. But I don't think people realize how little exposure people have to live music. I've had students at university who had never seen live instruments. They went to clubs. They heard electronic music. They had never seen live music until I made them go. And that is not a reality conservatories live in. And so that's not what they want to celebrate, because that's not how you tell people come and have a career. But the opportunity on the flip side of that, there's a lot of ears. And if one is willing to do the work and put up with questions that may not be the most elucidated questions, I think we could have amazing success. But it has to move beyond just, can I have a career in music? It has to be, what is the spirit of this that we do, and figure out how we can take the most beautiful product in the world. And I just say that is sound. I do stuff with Hindustani musicians, Carnatic music, music from India, I'm not just a classical music centric. That's your question, Terry. I do play some of that other genre music, just not necessarily Western. Japan, Carnatic music from South India. Um, but I do think we, as even as for MUFI as an organization, there's so right now for conservatories and music schools, it's how do we get people into teaching? I don't think that should be it. I think we should be going out into being, missionaries of music. I'm not a religious person, so I'll take a missionary of music over, except for opera. Opera fanatics are really scary to me. That's a whole other world. But anyway, I'm ranting, I'm rambling. I think there's a lot of positive things that we can do. And this is what I do when I go to schools. I'll be at Salem State in the spring talking about a career in music. And I think if we act from the place of music first, music first and last and middle, but yeah, I want to make a living, but I'm not going to knock someone else's knees out to do it. And
Not at whatever cost.
not at whatever cost. And I know people who've done that. They sold themselves to get some quick money, and it doesn't turn out nicely. So, yeah. On a happy note, Mu Phi Epsilon is awesome. Viva MPE, and you guys rock. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak, Beverly.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Aaron. I always think back when I first knew you and you were playing in Concord and you were on this little stage about 6 inches high in a window, and a mouse came out.
Was it a mouse or was it a chipmunk?
It was a mouse. And
Concord
the
State.
whole audience is going crazy, trying to keep our cool while you're performing. And it disappeared before you finished performing.
And I think you
And
guys actually pointed it out. Did you notice? And I was like, nah, I didn't see anything.
yeah, and we all went crazy when you finished and the mouse had disappeared. It was hysterical. And if I remember correctly, that's the first time that I met Catherine and Carolina.
I think so. I think that was Concord School of Philosophy at the Louisa May
yeah.
Alcott House.
Yes, yeah, Louisa May Alcott House. Yeah, and I've told so many people that. But thank you so much, Aaron. I'm glad you have been here for so much of your career and have been able to experience. Carolyn and Richard and I went to several of the flamenco dance concerts and enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And it's always a new thing for us to experience. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here this afternoon and giving us a really close career and picture.
Thank you. I wasn't sure what to say, but there you go. Valerie gave me all the talking points. And
I told him what I wanted to hear. How's it?
it is fun. So thank you very much for being a part of this. You guys are as much a part of it, not quite as much as Catherine, but I've known you guys longer. Many of you longer.
Yeah.
I've known Catherine, and it is very close to my heart. And I may not make it to every meeting, but I don't forget you. So.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you.
I wonder if you would like me to read the minutes from the May meeting?
Oh, should I turn off the